question is, could I explain no resistance? And is that the same as unconditional acceptance?
Or just say what is it? What is it?
What it
What
is?
is it?
Well, no resistance and unconditional acceptance are both, they're the same thing. But to explain no resistance, maybe the easiest way is to explain resistance. Resistance comes when there is any kind of judgment or aversion. So whatever is happening or whatever is present, if we feel that we want to change that, make it go away, then that's a manifestation of resistance. Even if we don't do something to make something go away, if we have within us that strong feeling that we don't want it to be there, well, even a weak feeling that we don't want it to be there, then that's resistance. To the degree to which we are judging and rejecting some aspect of what we're experiencing, that's resistance. So no resistance is the opposite of that. It's being aware when there is resistance present, and doing our best to let go of that resistance and let that resistance disappear. It is exactly the same thing as unconditional acceptance, because when you don't resist, you accept. And if you accept unconditionally, it means that you're not accepting that, well, okay, I'm going to put up with this for the time being. That's not really unconditional acceptance. That is, the conditions are, I don't really want it to be here, but I'm not going to, I'm going to tolerate it for the moment. So it's not really unconditional acceptance. Unconditional acceptance is, it is a sort of surrendering to what is. But it's important to understand that these terms apply to the way things are in the moment. It doesn't mean that you don't take actions to correct things that are wrong. You know, if somebody is causing harm to somebody else, then of course it's appropriate to take some kind of action. But even in the process of taking action to correct something, you can unconditionally accept what is happening in the moment. And that will actually make it much easier to it's much easier to make some change. Suppose, for example, that somebody is doing something wrong, something that is harmful. Now, if we look at that and judge it, and we have a strong emotional reaction, that is the lack of acceptance, and that is a resistance. So those emotions are they're actually going to impair our ability to think clearly and ascertain what exactly is the best action to take. And they might actually interfere with our ability to perform that action effectively. So acting to make a correction is not something that stands in opposition to no resistance and to acceptance. It's something that actually is aided by no resistance. No resistance is no internal resistance to the reality that's already manifesting. And it comes from our realization and understanding that what is cannot be changed. only what will happen in the future. And the more often we remind ourselves of that, then the easier it will be. Another teacher has made the statement, and it's completely accurate. To resist what is insanity. Did I get that right? Is that how it goes?
Well,
Yeah.
insanity.
What's that?
Yeah, insanity is resisting what is.
Insanity is resisting what is. So in a way, you can see that unconditional acceptance is the only sane approach to what is. It leaves you most clearly capable of taking effective action if it's necessary. And if there's no action possible, it spares you the internal trauma of your whole resistance thing. Yes?
When you said the resistance is a judgment and a feeling that you don't want it to be there, so no resistance is to not have that.
That's right.
So how could it be consistent to have no resistance, but then take an action to correct it for the future?
Well, judgment is a crude hammer we use in place of the scalpel of wisdom and understanding. The more wisdom and understanding we have, the less we have of need of judgment. Because you can understand clearly the appropriateness or inappropriateness, the wholesomeness or unwholesomeness, the ramifications of an event or an action. But judgment is something that we use in place of reason, in place of understanding and wisdom.
So you didn't mean the word judgment literally. You meant it sort of carries this emotional.
I mean judgment as opposed to wise discrimination.
Okay.
Or discernment, clear discernment.
All right.
You're welcome. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, question on meditation. When the mindfulness getting weak, the thought will relatively become strong.
Yes.
Okay. So what makes the thought strong must be some energy.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'm not talking about the qigong energy, the outside thing. I'm talking about inside yourself. In the regular meditation practice. So there must be some energy to make it the thought strong. So can we extract those energy from the thought and make it use for the mindfulness? Do you have some skill or some technical?
This is something that we do as a result of our meditation practice. That.
Can you repeat that question?
Oh, thank you. Okay. The question was that when mindfulness becomes weak, that thoughts come up, and these thoughts have a kind of energy. The question was, is there a way that we can extract the energy from these thoughts to aid in our mindfulness? There is a phenomenon that happens as we practice that, of course, for the first 6 stages of the 10 stages of development of concentration and mindfulness, throughout the first 6 stages, there are a lot of different kinds of thoughts and feelings and other awarenesses present. And it's very reasonable for us to look at that and see that, well, indeed, these thoughts are coming from another part of our mind, another mental process, each one of these thoughts involves some mental process that has its own task to perform and its own agenda to fulfill. And so when we sit down to meditate, we have a mind that consists of many different mental processes with different tasks and agendas. And so when we try to focus the mind on one thing, we find these other processes are trying to pull us in other directions. So this is a way of describing the typical situation. We keep trying to refocus the energy of the activity of the totality of the mind towards a single objective, while the individual parts of the mind keep trying to go in their separate way. The interesting thing that happens when we pass from the 6th stage to the 7th stage is we have the experience that there's no longer so many different thoughts arising, that our sense of hearing and our body tactile sense and our different senses aren't intruding so strongly with other sensations into the field of our concentration and awareness. Now, when we're thinking in terms of the meditation object and the field of observation, we would say it has become single-pointed, because now the attention remains focused on a single point, and the focus becomes more or less exclusive. It's omitting all of these other things that before were somehow being still included in our awareness. Excuse me a moment here. I have a little drink of water. But another way that we could look at the same thing that's happened is we could say our mind has become unified. Now all of those different parts of our mind, those different mental processes, instead of trying to draw the attention away to other activities, they are now sort of coalescing so that all of the different parts of the mind are either supporting the primary objective, or else they're at least not competing with it. They're at least not disrupting it. And so this is a very useful and helpful concept to think that when we reach the 7th stage and the higher stages in the development of concentration and awareness, what we have done is we have unified our mind from a pack of different impulses trying to go in different directions and do different jobs to all being focused on the same one at the same time. When that happens, we experience the mind becomes very clear, the energy becomes stable, the mindfulness and the concentration both become effortless. In other words, we're not expending effort to sustain the attention and to be mindful. We're not exerting effort against these other parts of the mind that are trying to go somewhere else. Now, essentially, all of the energy of the mind becomes available for the single task. So, in that case, we're doing exactly what you suggested, that we're the energy of the thoughts now, instead of being something that we have to use other energy to counteract, now is in support of the concentration and mindfulness. So this is a very good way to describe the goal of the practice. We are striving towards unification of mind. We're striving towards that place where all the different parts of our mind are working in harmony and cooperation. And at that point, that's when you enter the 8th stage of the practice, is that concentration and mindfulness become effortless. Seemingly effortless, at least. There's no longer this aspect of constantly being vigilant, because otherwise some thought process or some other mental process is going to take the attention away, or constantly being vigilant because the mind is going to start sinking into dullness. It's now effortless. You don't need that same degree of vigilance. Don't need to be on guard. Don't need to be always making corrections anytime you feel the attention drifting, anytime you feel a mindfulness weakening. It just happens so gracefully and easily. So that's how you do it.
When you get the effortless, then the thought won't come in.
That's right. When it's effortless, there is still some slight tendency for.
But but even though at there and when your awareness is still coming weak, then the soul still sleeping.
If your awareness becomes weak, then other thoughts and things like that will begin to come in. But if you're practicing at the stage of effortless concentration, then as long as there is a clear intention and purpose to what your conscious awareness is doing, then that won't happen. When the meditation ends and you get up and you begin to relax the mind, then these other thought processes will begin to come up. You can elect to remain mindful, in which case there won't be this struggle for these thoughts to take over and become the new direction, the new focus of the mind. Rather, they will come up, they'll be acknowledged by mindfulness, and then when they are let go of, they just dissipate on their own. Or, when you're not in meditation, if you've already got up from meditation and the thought that arises is one that is appropriate and reasonable, then it's allowed to go ahead and proceed, and you mindfully observe the development of the thought and the intentions and the actions that might come out of that. So this is the place where you are when you're out there doing things, where the thought comes that, well, this would be a good time to have a cup of tea, and all the other thoughts that come with that. But you are mindful of the intentions, you're mindful of the purpose, you're mindful of the process.
But I have a really tricky experience.
Yeah.
How because when I'm there and I still have the meditation strategy in mind.
Yeah.
Right. So how decide how to do this, how to do that, and then when the mindfulness is getting weak, the thought is very tricky. It's connected to the strategy. Like you have strategy say, oh, we gotta do something, and then the thought say, oh, because they start sleeping, say, oh, because something like a Dharma saying and something Dharma saying, and then lead it to become a Dharma thought.
Right, start to have a Dharma thought.
Yeah, and then I discover it,
Yeah.
and then I make it away. You just automatically get it away. And then when I discover it, so it's that kind of that very tricky to sleeping in the thought other than the strategy.
Yes. Well, let me just take this to a different thing. In the process of developing your concentration and mindfulness, for a large part of that time, there is some sort of verbal thinking taking place, and sort of a narrative or commentary. And that can be useful. You can incorporate that into your practice as a strategy for helping you to stay more focused than you would be. So if the inner narrative is making comments on the quality of your mindfulness and that of which you're being mindful, and you can say, okay, well, that's fine. I'm still, so I'm thinking, but I'm thinking about what I am being mindful of. If you're being mindful of the breath, you can think about, there I really saw the beginning of the out-breath really clearly. Okay, I'm going to try to see the end of the out-breath just as clearly. oh, I didn't quite. Well, next time around I'll grab it. Okay, oops, I'm already missing the beginning of the end grab. Well, that's all right. It's helping you stay with it. At least you're not thinking about lunch. Right?
Yeah,
But the risk, the weakness of this, the risk of this is always that once you give the little yap, the opportunity, the freedom, the license to go, it's just a matter of time before it starts yapping about something else. And if you were used to letting it happen, it can take you off somewhere else for quite a ways before you realize that it's doing it. So it is both, it is helpful and it's useful, but it does have that risk and that weakness is that it can definitely take you away. Is that basically addressing what you're talking about? Yeah. And in terms of my advice to a meditator, I would say use that. Like, for example, if you're having trouble concentrating on your meditation object because there is a lot of verbal thinking going on, go ahead and see if you can get that verbal thinking to be about the meditation object. Use it at that point. But remember that sooner or later it's going to, sneaky process that it is, it's going to carry you away on something else. So as soon as you feel like you don't need it anymore, let go of it. Let it slip into the background. Start ignoring the voice. Hope that's helpful to you. Anything else? Yes, Michael?
The answer to my question seems kind of obvious, but I just want to confirm with you. You said that it's very common for people to achieve certain levels in meditation, and then there might be regression. And regression, I'm thinking, has a direct relationship to do with how we live our normal life, how mindful we are, how much greed we have, how much craving, how much anger. If everything has a relationship with how calm our mind can be. So if we live a very clean life, that naturally induces progression of meditation progress. And if we start having a lot of craving, naturally our meditation will become less, will probably regress. Would that be correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yes,
okay.
That is true. And that's the very pragmatic side of practicing virtue and practicing the perfections of generosity, virtue, patience, and joyful effort, or right effort, is that these very directly support your meditation practice by keeping you in a non-agitated, non-grasping, non-greedy, non-aversive kind of state of mind.
So it seems like the Buddhist practice is not asking us to be compassionate to the point of some extreme stories of somebody slicing off their arm to feed a hungry, wild animal. It's not that. It really comes down to how do we achieve enlightenment through conditioning the mind. It's the main objective is not to go all out and then do all these extreme sacrifices.
Yes, because you can help many more people much more by achieving your own awakening, or even just becoming a very good meditation practitioner and being able to share what you have learned with other people, than doing something so crude as sacrificing your life or your body or things like that.
Yeah, because the Buddha never encouraged people to be vegetarians. And actually, in this world, there's so many things worth devoting time and effort into, but it seems like he intentionally omitted a lot of the other worthwhile endeavors to focus on how to achieve enlightenment. Because I find a lot of contradiction in myself, that although I care a great deal about the animal's welfare, but I also eat there's all kinds of these contradictions, but it doesn't seem like that's an objective that the Buddha is it wants us to pay also knowledge and attention to.
I would agree with you there. There are all kinds of good reasons for not eating meat, and one of them is recognizing that, as long as you eat meat, there are animals that are going to be killed. But there are more important things than that. Not that that's not important, but there are more important things. So if it comes down to a choice between the more important things and the less important things, then you might continue to eat meat or other things like that. But what you first said is really true, that you need to purify your virtue. And if it comes to the point, and I think this does happen with a lot of people, it comes to the point where they find that eating meat produces an agitation to their mind because they feel like it's something that they shouldn't do. It begins to affect their conscience. And at that point, it would be foolish of them not to quit eating meat. Unless they, there's actually no reason. If something's causing you a problem, and especially if the problem is causing is interfering with your meditation, your spiritual practice, then what on earth reason could there be to continue doing it? Yeah.
One of my co-workers, sometimes she goes on a high-protein diet, which she eats a lot of meat, and I can tell her aggressiveness after, when she goes into this diet, I stay away from her. She becomes mean and aggressive, and she just becomes very unhappy with herself. And I notice a difference because I've been working with her for 10 years. And every time she goes into this diet, it's like I stay away from her. Seriously.
It's true, I sense that I have more aggression when I eat more meat too.
Yes, yes, and that's something that a lot of people, and as a matter of fact, a lot of athletes who do things like play football and things like that, deliberately eat a lot of meat because they feel like they need a lot of aggression. So, but we don't need aggression to be meditators. And also, certain foods are recognized as being more likely to create both physical and mental disturbance. And so, at some point, for anybody, attention to their diet might become a very appropriate part of their practice. And certainly, I would recommend if you feel that your diet, just like any other daily habit, if you feel like your diet is starting to have an impact on your practice, then take some kind of appropriate action. So. Okay, thank you. And speaking of diet, of course, it's time for lunch.